back to the subject of reaction, because that is where the door either opens or shuts. Grace moves when you stop moving. Be still and let it work. Now, that sounds simple enough that a child could hear it, and yet you and I know how this age is wearied to the bone in a culture of fixing, improving, optimizing the self, patching the world with new programs and diets and thoughts, as if there is a little workman inside who could push the levers of God. And you are tired, you see. The fatigue is not because you are evil, but because the belief in a personal doer is a universal belief, inherited, soaked into the bones, a belief that says, if I don't act aggressively, immediately the house will fall. And so the house does fall, not because you fail to act, but because effort blocked grace. Do you see that? When you rush to fix, you have already confessed that appearances have power. You have stood before Goliath and measured his height with your eyes, and in that moment your sling is heavy and your heart is heavier. The Master said it more gently. Be still and know that I am God. He did not say, be frantic and prove that you can root the enemy. He said, resist not evil, and we, in our wisdom, resist it in the name of God, as if God needed our cleverness. Hear me now. Do not turn to God for anything. God is not a power to use against a problem. God is not your tool, not a better club to beat back the darkness. God isn't mind. God isn't even soul. Nobody knows what God is. But when you are still, when you cease the reflex to fix, that which we call grace moves of itself. What is an appearance? It is a temptation to react, a picture set before the senses to solicit your fear, your love, your hate, your condemnation, or your embrace. An appearance is a motion picture with no law behind it unless you give it law by your reaction. Faith, the degree of faith, is shown by your reaction to the appearance. If you have faith, you will not enter the case humanly, you will not give advice, you will not take sides, you will not even clutch at truth statements to throw like darts. You will stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Do you remember? Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will shew to you today. All right? Salvation is not a project, it is a presence. So our middle path, the path that is narrow because it refuses every invitation to drama, is this: neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance, neither oppose it nor embrace it. Let it pass in silence. Your child slams the door, your body reports a pain, your account groans. These are the couriers of universal belief arriving with urgent mail. Do you open it? Do you reply? Or do you, in 10 seconds of holy disinterest, turn from the letter to the living presence? You see, this is not passivity. It is the only act of faith you have, because only silence makes the contact that heals. Human statements do not heal. Grace heals. Human effort does not heal. Grace heals. And grace cannot be coaxed, managed, or audited. Grace moves when you stop moving. I know the habit that jumps up to defend its right to intervene. It says, if I do nothing, I will be swallowed. No. If you do nothing humanly, you make room for the infinite to be itself. It is I. Be not afraid. That I is not your little personality. It is the one who needs no defender. Refuse the reflex, and you will feel a peculiar quiet that is not indifference but authority. Refuse the outcome, and you will watch the wind shift without your hand on the sail. Let us begin here, then, at the only door that opens. Cease the reflex to fix. In the instant you withhold reaction, you have honored God more than in 1,000 words. And in that split second of yieldedness, the movement that heals, the only movement, has the floor. Now let us put the measuring rod right in your pocket where you can feel it each time you reach for a word, a defense, a plan. Faith, the only faith there is shown by your reaction or non-reaction to appearances. That is not poetry. That is your litmus. Don't react to the appearances. Don't desire to change appearances. Don't enter the case humanly. If you want to know this day how much you trust the invisible, you will know it by the quiet you keep when the visible rattles its chains. Be still and know that I am God. Not be clever, not be quick, not be right, be still. You see? Across the board, it is the same test. The account says insufficient funds. All right? That slip of paper is not your life, and God is not a bank. Do not reach for 3 telephones and 5 favors. Do not whip up affirmations like a wind. Sit 10 seconds in holy disinterest. Refuse the outcome. Let the inner weather clear before you lift a finger, and you will find that the next act is given you, and it will not be born of fear. Your marriage gives you a sting, a sentence flung like a pebble to see if you will splash. Do not splash. Don't react to the appearance. Don't desire to change the person. Don't enter the case humanly with counsel or counter-accusation. Be still. Let the presence that is between you, not you or them, but that which is have its moment to come forth. And in the doctor's office, when a word is spoken that men call grave, do not rush to cast out a name with another name. Resist not evil. Sit, yes, even there, until the heart hears again, it is I, be not afraid. Your next steps will be shown, but they will be the steps of one who is governed, not driven. Now the cost, because there is one. If you are not willing to leave mother, brother, sister, father, for my sake, for principle, your loyalties will tug you back into the storm. This is not cruelty, this is clarity. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Do you see what that means? It means you cannot trade the government of spirit for the government of blood ties when the winds rise. A mother's panic, a brother's advice, a friend's outrage, these are not your shepherd. Who is my mother and who are my brethren? Whosoever shall do the will of my Father. The will of the Father is stillness before appearances, allegiance to principle over personalities, silence over speech until the word is born. All right? Let us make it small and close so you cannot wriggle free. A sharp email lands. Your name is misrepresented. Your motives are questioned. The fingers want to fire back. The mind is propping up a case. Stop. Don't react to the appearance. Don't desire to change appearances. Don't enter the case humanly. Close your eyes for 10 seconds that feel like 10 hours and let the inner storm blow itself out without your cooperation. Say nothing inside either. Forget even the truth you know. Wait. You will feel the click, the turn of the key, and suddenly the room inside you is quiet. Has the outer thing changed? Likely not yet. But the only effective act of faith has been performed, and from that quiet will come either no reply at all, which is sometimes the Christ answer, or a sentence so simple and clean that it carries no barb and needs no victory. And then later, maybe a day, maybe a week, the outcome will show its alignment. But you do not watch for it with the nervous appetite of a beggar. You go on in your rhythm, because faith did its work at the moment of non-reaction, not at the hour of applause. Do you see why I say your refusal to react is not passivity? It is the only act of faith that counts, because it is the only act that refuses a second power. When you give no answer to Goliath, you have denied him stature. When you neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance, you have knelt at no altar but the invisible. Keep the litmus where you can touch it. Take it into the bank, the kitchen, the ward, the meeting, and when the next wave rises, let the Christ within you say to it, "Peace, be still," by your stillness. Then leave the rest to grace. Now we come to the hinge on which everything turns, and it is not cleverness. Nobody, by taking thought, can contact God. Do you see that? This is the scandal to the mind that has collected its texts and polished its affirmations. We have loved our truths, and they had their hour of scaffolding, but when you enter prayer, you must forget even the truths you love. When ye pray, use not vain repetitions. He did not say the words are evil. He said, do not use them to batter down a door that only yields to silence. You see, statements about God are not God. A thought about light is not light. A word about bread will not feed a hungry child. All right. When we would touch the living presence, we lay aside the tool bag, even the sacred tools, and we become so still that the wind of spirit can move without catching on the edges of our opinions. Now, I must be iconoclast again, because if we do not strip the altar, we will keep bowing to images. God isn't mind. God isn't even soul. Nobody knows what God is. Not a bigger mind, not a holier mood, not a force we can marshal. Don't try to think God. Don't try to picture God, neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem, but in spirit and in truth. Spirit cannot be thought. Truth cannot be managed. This is why resistance fails and assertion fails and even religious excitement fails. God is not a power to be used against a problem. God is the I that is sufficient to itself, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. When you stop composing prayers and quit explaining metaphysics to the infinite, there comes, if you are willing to be nothing for a breath, a something that is not your something, a hush that is not your silence at all, there must come a split second of silence, no plea, no plan, no defense, just the relinquishment of self as operator. How do you find it? 2 or 3 quiet breaths, not to control God, but to let the nervous animal lie down. Hands off outcomes. You cannot steer this river. An inward turning, be still, and know that I am God, and then no word. If a verse rises, bow to it and let it pass. Do not hold it. If a thought tries to help, thank it and dismiss it. Prayer and fasting. Fasting from thought, from truth statements, from the very wish to succeed. This is the fast acceptable. In that unguarded instant, a door not made with hands opens, not wide with fireworks, but precise as the click of a latch. Do not look for sensation. The sign is not thunder, but a soft release from fear, a center that needs no argument. It is like the room stopped breathing you and began being breathed. You will recognize it because the need to fix vanishes without your permission. This is the contact. I, God, am the solution to all problems. Not I, the thinker, not I, the practitioner, I, God. And now appearances may still parade, but they have lost their subpoena over you. You stand in the middle path, neither fearing, loving, nor hating. And from that stillness, the next right movement, if any, is given you. Sometimes it is do nothing. Sometimes it is one clean sentence. Sometimes it is to rise and go to Nineveh or to bed. But the authority is of another order, and you will not be checking the clock to see if the miracle is on time. Let me make it near. A man brought me a report the world calls fatal. He had already battered heaven with verses and tired himself with affirmations. All right, put them down. 2 breaths. Be still and off with even that. In 7 heartbeats the room turned, and there was that click, no glow, no tremor, only the absurd calm that says, it is not in me, it is in God. We spoke no word about healing. We thanked nothing. We did not monitor. A week later there was a shift in the medical picture, yes, but do you see, the healing had begun at the moment fear lost its throne. The rest was timing. So keep this one treasure. Only silence, not statements, makes the contact that transforms appearances. Take your 2 breaths, lay down outcomes. In spirit and in truth, be still. Wait for the click, and then go on, unhurried, because grace has its own tempo. And in that split second, you touched the one that needs no help. All right? Now that you see the hinge is silence and not speech, we must take the next step in method, because if you carry silence into a room and then give your allegiance to a personality, you have lost the blessing before it can flower. Never enter the case humanly. Never desire to see one side or the other win. You are not dealing with a good side and a bad side. You are dealing with the one appearing as many. Christ is the only identity in that room. Do you see that? Not the loud one, not the frightened one, not the side with the contract or the votes. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Righteous judgment is not picking a better devil. It is refusing the entire game of sides and letting the government be upon his shoulder. Now, this is where some of you say, but surely there must be a right and a wrong in it. Yes, there is a right. The right is the emergence of spiritual harmony. And there is a wrong. The wrong is any allegiance to a person, including the one who hired you. Not even the side that hires you owns your prayer. Your service is not to a man, nor to a union, nor to a board, nor to an altar of family pride. Who is my mother, and who are my brethren? Whosoever shall do the will of my Father. The will of the Father is principle, not personality. If the one that engaged you wants to lose, that is his business. Your business is to withdraw judgment, stand still in the one life, and wait for the form spiritual good chooses. Take a labor dispute. I have seen them in 3 cities and on 2 islands, and the temptation is the same. Management calls and says, we are right, help us. Labor calls and says, we are abused, help us. If you help either, you have no help to give. Don't react to the appearance. Don't enter the case humanly with sympathy or strategy. Sit down in the middle of it all and acknowledge, not with words, but with that inner bow, that there are not 2 minds trying to outwit each other, but one mind expressing order. There are not 2 lives scraping for survival, but one life fulfilling itself. There is neither Jew nor Greek, bond nor free, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. Be still until the click comes. Then keep your hands off the outcome. If harmony requires a new leadership, let it. If it requires a contract rewritten in a way neither side imagined, let it. If the plant must close that another and better provision may open, let it. Effectiveness begins where taking sides ends. Principle, not personality, carries the power. Or take the marriage that has worn itself thin with accusation and defense. One comes saying, vindicate me. The other, punish them. If you are tempted to fix the person, you have left the altar for the courtroom. Never desire to see one side win. Never enter the case humanly. Hold to the fact without saying it aloud to impress anyone that Christ is the only identity present as both, and that the union that matters is the union in God, not the contract of 2 frightened egos. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. And who put it together? God joins only in spirit. If what is joined is fear, possession, or habit, do not call that God. Be still. Let the inward government speak, and then do not argue with what it orders. If spiritual harmony can only be achieved through separation, let's have it quietly, cleanly, without tragedy, because there is no tragedy where God governs. If it can be achieved through repentance and a new household spirit, let's have that. We do not choose which. We consent to whichever form the one good elects. You see? By refusing sides, you refuse a second power. And by refusing outcomes, you refuse to play God. This is not indifference. This is obedience to the first commandment. One God, one power, one presence. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and secretly hope your friend wins. Not be still and angle for a settlement with your thumb on the scale. Be still and know. And when the knowing comes as that soft release, Do not rise and monitor the field to see if your preference is flowering. Go about your day in the rhythm of trust. Let God have its perfect work. In practice, it is simple, though the habit may kick. Withdraw judgment, refuse sides, refuse outcomes, wait in silence, then move only as moved. If your word is needed, it will be one clean sentence without barb. If your act is needed, it will be given without strain. If nothing is needed, you will know it, and you will not feel guilty for doing nothing. This is the discipline, not to let love or hate for a face drag you from principle. Stand in the middle path, neither fearing, loving, nor hating any appearance, and watch how quickly heat leaves the room when the Christ has the floor. Now, because you will be asked to stand in rooms where the noise insists a villain must be found and punished, we must unmask the trick by which error pretends to have power, unpersonalized trouble. This has nothing to do with this person. This is a universal belief, claiming voice through a scene. Master, who did sin, this man or his parents? And the answer still stands, neither, but that the works of God should be made manifest. You see, the moment you fix the blame on a face, yours or another's, you have granted the belief a home address and a lease. You have entered the case humanly. Don't. The discord is not a character flaw. It is a floating suggestion, a world thought, whispering for your reaction. Name the nothingness. Infection and contagion, no law supports them in God. Lack and limitation, no ordinance, no statute in the kingdom ratifies them. There is only one power. I am the Lord, and there is none else. Do not set up a second jurisdiction called disease or economics. Neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling, not because you chant it, but because in the realization of one, a second power cannot stand. Right now, while you hear me, let this be your inner word. This has nothing to do with me or with them. This is a universal belief with no law behind it, all right? Here is the practice ladder, because you must have something simple when the wind is up. First, see the universal belief. Identify the suggestion without giving it a person to ride. A draft causes colds. Markets control livelihood. Missing the Sabbath angers God. These are the headlines of world thought. They have no authority but our consent. Second, drop theological counter-arguments. Do not argue texts against the wind. That is still reaction. When ye pray, use not vain repetitions. Third, release the personal stake, the wish to be cleared, to be right, to be safe ahead of the rest. He that saveth his life shall lose it. Let even the desire for a quick result go. And then, silence. Not improved thoughts, the split second of no thought. In that order, you will feel the floor appear beneath your feet. Sometimes, to steady the mind just at the edge of quiet, we use a clean sentence as a lever, and then we let it fall away. Right now, I nullify any seeming effect from a universal belief, and then stop talking and be still. Do you see why that works? Because you have refused to make a personal case. You have refused to empower a second law, and you have refused to help God. The silence that follows is not absence, it is presence without your embroidery. Be still and know that I am God. And if you must have a sign, it will be very small. The compulsive clutching lets go. The nervous breath evens. You feel no need to check the door. That is all. From there, if any movement is to be, it will be given you. Every day offers exposures, and they are good practice. The child comes in with wet hair, and the grandmother gasps, "Cold!" You smile inside because you know drafts do not legislate health, spirit does. Markets lurch, and the headlines bark, and you do not sign the confession that numbers control your bread. Take no thought for your life. Behold the fowls of the air. A Sunday is missed, and an old fear whispers that God keeps attendance. The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. We are not defiant. We are unenchanted. We withdraw the borrowed authority we gave to superstition, dressed as common sense, and we rest in one. Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Hear that as your own word to every appearance. You have no power at all unless I lend you mine by reaction. When you see error as impersonal belief without law, its threat collapses and you can be still. And in that stillness, the works of God are made manifest, not because you arrange them, but because the imitation stopped borrowing your belief and fell of itself. Now, let us turn from talk to a live drill, because unless you can do this in the heat, it remains poetry. Set the trigger now. See the name on your screen, the X, who knows where to touch a bruise. Hear the ping from the bank account alert and feel the old fear try to put its hands on your throat. Or a jab of pain comes, quick and convincing, and you can feel your body tense to bargain. All right? There is a surge to fix, to explain, to answer, to search a remedy, to run to a verse. That surge is the very place grace would enter if you do not move. Here is the challenge. For 10 seconds, do not move your body. Do not argue inwardly. Do not reach for a remedy. Fast from reaction. Let your eyes softly close or rest. Let your hands stay where they are. No counsel to yourself. No text thrown like a dart. No heroics. 10 seconds. One inner word only, once. Be not afraid. It is I. Then silence. Not a holy silence you decorate with thoughts about silence, the naked kind. Resist not evil. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Do you see? You are not improving the picture. You are refusing to give it power by the only means you have, non-reaction. Count, if you must, by the slow turning of your breath. But do not use the counting to comfort yourself. Use it to keep from meddling. This is the fast the Master named when he said, this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. You are fasting from help, even holy help. You are praying without words because you are standing in the only prayer there is. God is, I am still. In these 10 unprotected seconds, you will discover that your life does not need your hands on it to be upheld. If a thought tries to help, let it pass like a bird crossing the window. If a feeling pleads its case, nod at it and remain unmoved. 10 seconds. And then breathe as you were breathing before any of this tried to govern you. Now, what do we notice after? Not the text replied to, not the balance changed, not the pain explained. Notice the inner unclenching, the small click where fear loses command. It is subtle, you see. A loosening in the chest. The face softens. The compulsion to touch the phone lifts a fraction. The need to know abates. That click is the door. In 10 unprotected seconds of stillness, you prove there is a door and you know how to touch it. From there, if a sentence is to be sent, you will know it and it will be clean. If a call is to be made to the bank, it will not be made by panic. If the body is to be attended, the step will come without theater. Peace, be still is no longer something you say to the storm. It is what your silence has said to you. A young mother wrote, the message came from the man who left 3 lines to stir up history. I felt my hand reach for the reply before I could think. Then I remembered 10 seconds. I said once, be not afraid. It is I. And then I shut the door on all words. She said the click came on breath 7. She never sent a reply. 3 days later, something different happened outside. But do you see, the victory had already occurred. Her government changed hands. Another man sat in a waiting room as numbers climbed and dread paraded its headlines. 10 seconds. No bargaining with God, no promising to be better, no running to a website. The click came like a soft weight settling in his spine. From there, a simple, unhurried question to the nurse. That was all. Not dramatic, not pious, governed. Now, the reset rule, because the mind is quick to rush back in as soon as the phone buzzes again or the ache returns, start another 10 seconds. How oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him till 7 times? I say not, but until 70 times 7. Do you see the point? Small obediences, again and again, train a new center. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. 10 seconds is least. It is also everything, because in that little fast you refuse a second power. If in second 3 you catch yourself composing an argument, all right, begin again. If in second 9 you feel the armature of control climbing back up your neck, all right, begin again. This is not failure, this is practice. Each unprotected stillness is a seed of government taking root. Make this a sacred dare you keep in your pocket, ready for the ping, the jab, the glare, the rumor. Do not wait for a holy hour. Take the 10 seconds at the sink, at the curb, between sentences in the meeting. One inner word, be not afraid. It is I, and then fasting from every other word. Let grace move when you stop moving. Wait for the click, then walk on. Not triumphant, not watchful, simply steady. Because you have found the door and you know how to touch it. Some of you have proved the 10 seconds and know the door, and yet there is a case that returns like weather chronic symptoms that have learned your calendar, an old grievance that wakes before you do, intractable numbers that seem to breed while you sleep. All right? Name them quietly, without drama, the mind's favorite battlegrounds. You have waited for the click, and sometimes it comes, and then on the 4th day, the hook is back. This kind is not impressed by our cleverness, not moved by our quoting. This kind, the Master said, goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. Do you see? There are knots that only loosen when you stop using even holy words and wait in naked silence. Let me define our fast so there is no confusion. Fasting in this practice is not food. It is the withdrawal from the entire therapy of thought. No affirmations, no refutations, no argument with a diagnosis, no mental chiropractic to align a life. Put down the scalpel of phrases. When ye pray, use not vain repetitions. He did not forbid Scripture. He forbade leaning on it as leverage. In the fast, we stop trying to help God. We stop trying to help ourselves. We stop trying. God isn't mind. God isn't even soul. Nobody knows what God is. Don't turn to God for anything. Turn into God and be still. And prayer here is not petition. It is consent. Not my will, but thine be done. Not words about willingness, but the actual yielding of self as operator so that God may be what God is without your management. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. When you pray in this way, you do not aim the infinite at a problem because there are not two powers. You rest spirit and body until presence announces itself in that soft release, and you refuse to measure before or after. Now the vigil, because some of you will need to watch, sit, or walk, or lie quietly. No clock. Could ye not watch with me 1 hour? If it is an hour, all right. If it is 3, all right. If it is 7 minutes at the sink, all right. Keep the fast. No holy talk, inside or out. If a verse rises, bow and let it pass. If fear comes, pleading its case, let it speak to the wind, you answer nothing. If the click comes, stop. Do not linger to admire it. Do not pluck fruit before it is ripe. If the click does not come, keep the fast. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. You are not producing a result. You are consenting to government. I have sat nights in Los Angeles, and on a small island where the trades comb the palms, and the stories were the same. A body convinced of its long grievance, a house convinced of its coming loss, a heart convinced it must be vindicated. We fasted from every remedy of words. We prayed by ceasing to operate. Sometimes the click came like a bird landing. Sometimes there was only a steady blank that did not frighten us, because even blankness is better than self-will. Then we slept. Days later, in some cases weeks, adjustments appeared, appointments shifted, numbers rearranged, a letter softened, a pain forgot its script. But did we watch the field each morning like farmers scolding the earth? No. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They do not audit it. You will be tempted to heroics, to imagine you are using God to win a case. Refuse that temptation. Never enter the case humanly. Never desire to see one side or the other win, even the side named your health, your property, your pride. You are not using God to succeed. You are relinquishing a selfhood that wants success. My grace is sufficient for thee. Grace, not victory stories, is what we seek. And grace moves on, its own tempo. When the urge to peek at the outcome rises, that is your cue, another small fast. Be still and let the work be perfect without your fingerprints. So for the hard cases, the chronic, the entrenched, the intractable, prayer and fasting. Withdraw every tool of thought. Consent without petition. Keep a quiet vigil without a clock. Stop when the click comes. If it does not, keep the fast. Some knots untie only when you lay down even holy help and wait in naked silence. And there, without drama, the government shifts, the second power evaporates, and you discover again that I, God, am enough. All right, let us speak of time, because if you keep your finger on the pulse and your eye on the clock, you will choke the very life you prayed to let govern. Don't look at your demonstration day by day. Let maturity bring to light. The earth bringeth forth fruit of herself. First the blade, then the ear. After that, the full corn in the ear. You don't pull the stalk to help it grow. You don't dig up the seed to see if the roots are cooperating. In due season we shall reap if we faint not. Do you see? Fainting is not falling down. Fainting is meddling, checking, measuring, scolding the field for not hurrying to please your calendar. You say, but surely if God has moved, there should be fireworks by Friday. Not necessarily. Saul of Tarsus saw a light that dropped him to the earth, and yet he did not go out the next morning with a brochure and a schedule. He withdrew. He wrestled. He was 9 years ripening in obscurity. You don't think for a minute fruit ripens overnight, do you? For the vision is yet for an appointed time. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. There is an appointed time, and it is not appointed by fear, nor by habit, nor by the flattery of our plans. It is appointed by grace. Now, tie this to outcomes, because the impulse to hurry is married to the impulse to win. If the one that engaged you wants to lose, that's his business. You stay with principle. Not even the side that hires you owns your prayer. Your interest is not in a verdict. Your interest is in spiritual government. Sometimes healing is restoration, health returning, contracts mended, a house steadied. Sometimes healing is release, an old structure dissolved, a door quietly closed so a clean one might open. Either way, the government shall be upon his shoulder. You do not have to like the form. You have to consent to the one who formed. So how do we live this without turning timing into another project? With a quiet rhythm, not negotiations. Brief, faithful silences at the natural hinges of your day. Before you answer a message, before you cross a threshold, before you take food, before you turn out the light, when you first wake and before a single thought claims the morning, 2 breaths, an inner bow, be still and know that I am God, then no words. 10 seconds of non-reaction is enough to keep you inside the government. 10 seconds repeated is a life. Do you see the difference? Not hour-long wrestlings to force a bloom, a dozen small obediences to keep you available to grace. A woman wrote, I stopped looking at the number on the report every morning. I kept my little silences at the sink, at the car door, at the pillow. 3 weeks later, the figure shifted. But she added the real testimony. The fear was gone before the paper changed. Another man lost a contract. We refused to take sides, refused to audit the field, and he kept his hinges of stillness. 2 months passed, and something better formed around a corner he could not see. Was that a delay? Or was it the exact appointment of a wiser love? 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday. Stop trying to match eternity to your wristwatch. Now, because the habit is strong, set a gentle rule. You will not examine the earth daily to see if your seed deserves a sermon. Once a week it may be right to look at a figure, to make a call, to read a report if moved, not driven. But each day, let patience have her perfect work. If you feel the hand crawling toward the field to measure and meddle, withdraw it and keep a small, fast 10 seconds, eyes soft, no words. The click or the calm may come. If it does not, walk on anyway. Faith is not proved by immediate fruit. Faith is proved by your non-reaction while the root takes hold. So trust the tempo of grace. It governs outcomes better than your monitoring ever could. The blade will not be hurried, and the ear will not be late. Keep your hinges of silence. Refuse sides and refuse clocks. Let God have its perfect work, and when the appointed form appears, restoration or release, you will recognize it not because you watched it grow, but because you were kept in the one life all the while. All right, let us look at the patterns in the field. Because the mind will insist that money is different from marriage, and marriage different from medicine, and that each demands a custom kit of human tools. It is not so. Across domains, the same presence works when we stop working it. The same refusal to react, the same split second of silence, the same allegiance to principle over personalities, and the same freedom from outcomes. These are not tricks. They are the single door through which grace enters to take its own form. A student wrote an envelope with red letters arrived, and a familiar wind rose. Scramble, plead, compose persuasive emails, collect sympathetic allies, craft a story to hurry a due date. Do you know that wind? He did nothing for 10 seconds. He said once, be still and know that I am God. And then he fasted from help. He refused the debtor identity. He refused the creditor's power. He refused to take sides with his own fear. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. He sat in the one, not in arithmetic. The click came, small and plain, and he went on with his work without conducting a campaign. 2 days later, an arrangement he had not imagined appeared, an extension offered without begging, a mistaken fee reversed, a new contract released funds. But do you see the order? The fear left before the numbers moved. Take no thought, for your Father knoweth. The form followed the government. It did not create it. In a house where voices had grown armored and every sentence had an indictment tucked inside it, a couple agreed to stop arguing with each other and start fasting from sides in secret. Not performative piety at the kitchen table. Secret. When the heat rose, each took 10 seconds. No rebuttal, no self-defense, no gathering of past exhibits. One inner bow. Christ is the only identity here. A soft answer turneth away wrath, and sometimes no answer at all is the softest. After 3 such pauses on one ragged evening, a sentence came to one of them, one clean sentence without barb, and it gentled the room as a hand quiets a skittish horse. Another night, After many pauses, the click came as clarity. This union, as presently held, was habit and fear knotted together. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. And who joined this? God joins in spirit. If spiritual harmony could only be achieved by a clean separation, let's have it without villain, without sides, with gratitude for the good fulfilled, and trust for the good to be. They did not choose which beforehand. They consented to whichever form the one good elected. That is why there was no tragedy, because there was no second power left to dramatize it. Then medicine. A child's fever rose fast, and the caretaker felt that old universal belief parade with sirens, contagion, catastrophe, guilt rehearsals for what you did wrong. She stood still. She withheld consent from the suggestion that drafts and germs legislate law. She withheld the superstition that worry is love. Neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. Not because you chant it like a charm, but because you refuse a second jurisdiction. One life is the life of that child and of the room and of the hand that touches the brow. In that knowing she rested. From there a step was given, cool cloth, unhurried call, simple care, not a flurry, not neglect governed. The fever settled as quietly as it rose, and whether it settled in an hour or by morning was not the point. The point is that decisions were made in love's temper, not in dreads. Peace, be still, was the tone of the house. Now, the Sabbath, because you will be told to hurry to a holy hour to get leverage. Hear the Master. The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Do not climb a mountain looking for a clock with God on it. The hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. In traffic, at the sink, on a cot by a small bed at 2 a.m, you may keep Sabbath without a calendar, 10 seconds of non-reaction, a bowed heart, no words. That stance is worship. That stance makes every place holy ground. What repeats in every one of these? Do you see it? Non-reaction, silence, principle over personality, freedom from outcomes. Then the form of good chooses itself. A letter softens, a speech is given or withheld, a body settled. We do not push the form, we consent to the presence. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. And because the directing is his, the path is clean, whether it bends toward restoration or release. Refuse sides and clocks. Keep your hinge of silence. Let God have its perfect work, and watch how uniform the law of spirit proves to be, whether it meets a ledger, a household, or a thermometer. All right? Let us make this very plain so you can walk with it tomorrow morning before your feet find the floor. Do less, receive more. Measure faith not by your phrases, but by your non-reaction. Meet everything with silence before speech, with inner stillness before a thought ever finds a tongue or a finger finds a key. You see, the only real contact is not a string of improved statements. It is the split second where you are not operating and God is. Be still and know that I am God. Not be noisy for God, not fixed for God. Be still and know. Here is your rule of life, and it is both gentle and exact. Negative first, because boundaries save you from the old reflex. Never enter the case humanly. Never desire to change appearances. Never take sides, not even the side that flatters you as right or sick to be healed or poor to be funded. We are on the middle path when we neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. Refuse the seduction to become counsel to God. Refuse the grin of self-improvement. Refuse the quarrel with what is trying to bait you into a second power. All right? Now the positive. Because life is not abstinence but presence. Be still in Christ. Let Christ's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Return to the split second often until it becomes the climate of your day. Abide in me, and I in you. This is not poetry. It is a practiced hinge. Hourly set it so, 10 seconds. Before sending, before spending, before defending. Before you answer the message, touch the door. Then answer or don't from peace. Before you open the wallet, touch the door. Then give, delay, or decline from peace. Before you explain yourself at the table, on the call, touch the door. Then speak or keep silence from peace. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Let your day be ribbed with these pauses. On waking, 2 breaths of wordless consent. At thresholds, room to room, street to street. Before food, before sleep. You are not making points with heaven. You are refusing to assign power to anything that is not God. The kingdom of God is not in your calendar, nor in your watch. The kingdom of God is within you, and you touch it in the unguarded instant where you stop moving. If in your pause a clean act is given, do it. If none is given, do not tease motion out of fear. Let grace be the only mover. And when the mind tries to modernize the rule into efficiency tricks, remember our iconoclasm and smile. God isn't mind. God isn't even soul. Nobody knows what God is. Don't turn to God for anything. Turn into God and be still. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. And spirit does not need your stopwatch. Your non-reaction is your faith. Your silence is your contact. Your consent is your prayer. That is enough, unseen friends. We rest together now, no petition, only consent. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. In this very quiet, without asking, without aiming, we give up the case, the clock, and the sigh. If a click comes, we stop there. If it does not, we stop there. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Then we rise and go on unhurried, unprovoked, unafraid, keeping the small hinges each hour, touching the door before sending, before spending, before defending, and letting the one life choose its own form. Make silence your first movement in everything, and let grace be the only mover. Do not watch the field. Walk in the presence. Pray without ceasing does not mean talk. It means remain available. And as you go across the ledger, through the doorway, into the night, hear the inner word that has guided us all this way. In thy silence I shall come to you.